Sanje Chudan Soje Chonayam Lai Chanju Parado Dane Chapsu Chi Dage Jinsu Jibe Sanam Chi Drola Penchir Sanje Drobar Shu Sanje Chudan Soje Chonayam Lai Chanju Parado Dane Jamsu Chi Dage Jinsu Jibe Sanam Chi Ro Hai Penchira Sanje Ro Bar Shu Sanje Chudan Soje Chonam La Chanju Pardo Dane Jamsu Chi Dage Jinsu Jibe Sanam Chi Rolai Penchira Sanje Drobar Shu Simjian Tamje Dewa Tan Devi Jutan Dembar Churji Dongara Yadan Dongara Chi Jutan Tawar Churji Dongara Mebe Dewa Tamba Tam Hindra War Churji Niren Shadan Tan Charve Tan Yom Chenbo La Nebar Churji Simchen Tamje Dewa Tan Devi Jodan Dembar Churji Dongara Tan Dongara Chi Jodan Chawar Churji Dongara Mebe Dewa Tamba Tan Mendra Churji Niren Chadan Tan Charve Tan Yom Chenbo La Nebar Churji Simchen Tamche Dewa Tan Devi Jodan Dembar Churji Dongara Tan Dongara Chi Jodan Chawar Churji Dongara Mebe Dewa Tamba Tan Mendra War Churji Niren Chadan Tan Charve Chenbo La Nebar Churji Jomden De Jambe Yang Lai Chan Tsai Lo Kange Lo Drim Nye Dendra Nye Dara Namda Ram Sarve Chinye Tungun Chishin Sichir Nije Tokara Lepam Kanda Sebe Tsura Mari Muntama Dungara Chisrebe Rozo Kunla Puji Darz Yan La Chuju Yang De Song Rudara Cherdo Nyumo Nilo Leje Jadro Rze Chen Mari Munsre Dungara Nyugu Chinye Chunze Rajana Dene Tajen Saju Tarsun Yuntene Luzo Gerse Tuyuku Jura Chutan Chuni Jent Dalu Munsir Jambe Yala Du Zeden Chuji Chera Vizir Chi Dalu Temu Mumba Rapsarane Kadan Denju Shunlu Toba Ye Lodru Bobe Hawa Tsar Tu Sor. Bonjour. Je vais poursuivre ce matin avec si je puis dire, révision des fondamentaux liés à l'enseignement du grand véhicule et en particulier qui est compréhension en prérequis, il me semble, pour comprendre correctement le texte que nous étudions, donc le Sangboche Pemelam, le Bhadrachari. Traduit en français, je pense, par la reine des...
The king of aspiration prayers. So yesterday we examined what we name as positive and negative actions, and I gave a few elements to enable you to discern what is positive and negative. And in relation to this, we briefly presented the notion of afflictions, nyungpa. And if we were to sum up, we give in to these states of minds that in reality, if we really look at their nature, are harmful. They're deeply harmful. And so if we become aware of this, we can try to change it. All the practice of Dharma, if I may say, if we say, I practice Dharma, if you do it well or not can be measured by looking at whether you manage to address the issue of afflictions. If the afflictions are reduced, your practice of Dharma is effective. But if your afflictions increase, you have more pride, you don't watch out for others, you have anger, more anger. It is that somewhere along the way your practice is not addressing its true aim. The aim of all Buddhist practice is to dissipate afflictions. And in this context, we briefly looked at the middle path, the middle way. And we put forward a few reflections and arguments which reveal the contradictions of the extreme view, the annihilationist view and the eternalist view. These two views are not founded. And in such a way, it will help you to better see what the middle way means according to the Buddha's teaching. And in relation to this, we drew attention to the notion of past lives and future lives, how this is a reality. It's not just it's not a Buddhist dogma or a Buddhist fiction. And it's the contrary, the opposite notions. For example, the presumed annihilationist view, which would be to say that the mind, a derivative of the body, is not produced, does not exist, and on the other hand, how a permanent self in the eternalist view is not established. Maybe I didn't say it, but some people ask me if in Buddhism there's no self, what is being reborn? I get these kinds of questions. These questions can come up because we imagine that there's something. It's because there's no self that there's rebirth. If there were a self, why would it be reborn? Because being reborn implies a change. Something, a self would be permanent, irreducible, substantive. It would not know any change. It would not be able to be born or be reborn. And it's because the self is not established that the experience of future lives or successive lives is possible. And so we saw that these views don't hold water. And the most pertinent presentation is that we find in the Buddhist teaching, in particular, this idea of past lives and future lives. And in relation to this, we also saw how the cycle of birth, why did it take place? It took place because of ignorance. We also presented what ignorance meant and how we could recognize in ourselves ignorance. And so long as this ignorance is present, it doesn't fade out in and of itself. And on the contrary, it reinforces itself. There will be no spontaneous discontinuity of rebirths. The problem of these rebirths or conditioned existence marked by our ignorance is the character of deception, of suffering. So it's profoundly unsatisfactory and painful, difficult. So superficially, we looked at the notion of dukkha in relation to this. And then we saw these points. And in relation to the notion of dukkha, I spoke about the bhavana chakra, the wheel of becoming. And we looked at this image that we find sometimes at the entrance to temples, the monasteries. The mirror held in the jaws of impermanence that is ephemeral, and all the possibilities within samsara. And I started to introduce to you the 12 links of dependent arising or dependent origination. I started, but I didn't present everything. So I'm going to maybe clarify this point briefly before following. And then we will look at the aspect of practice concretely. So the bhavana chakra, this image, I don't know if you can... if you've seen it before, you have a black character with big jaws and big eyes. Some people get it mixed up with the protector. It actually personifies impermanence. Sometimes it's presented as Yama, the Lord of Death, that holds within its jaws and claws the samsara. What does this mean? It means that nothing lasts. Everything changes. So once we've been taken birth, there's only one outcome. It's death. We know it's certain. Each of us will die one day. And this death can happen at any time. This moment is uncertain. Some die young, some die old. Some die when they're very healthy. Some die with an illness. Whatever the circumstances, And the conditions which can lead to death are multiple. Our body is fragile in this life, and it is impermanent. And in that sense, it is life is impermanent, fragile, and ephemeral. And no matter what kind of a life that we take, some forms of life have a longer length, and some is shorter. There are insects, ephemeral insects that only live one day or a few hours, their whole cycle of life. Other animals that we can see have very long lives. There are turtles that are 500 years old that are still alive. There are whales that have very long lives. But there are no sentient beings who are immortal. It's a preoccupation of many people. They want to find immortality, physical immortality. But it's not 100% possible. We might be able to prolong life, but life remains something fragile. And so whatever happens, death is the outcome. So that's what's symbolized. All the phenomena that we see change. In our conventional conception, we have the impression that a change is seasonal or accidental. We have the impression that the garden is always the same, or it's only after, or our house, it's only after a storm that something changes. It's the impression we have. And things change, and that comes from our assumption that it's something that is full-fledged and that exists independently. But whether it's everything is always changing, why do things change? Change happens because phenomena are some Duchepa in Tibetan. Duchepa. This means sometimes I use the term condition to translate this notion. This means that phenomena has parts which depend on multiple things. So no phenomena exists in and of itself or through itself. It appears because it's composite, conditioned. And it's for this reason that things are impermanent. And we could ask ourselves, why is there impermanence and not permanence? The answer is that impermanence is due to the fact that things have no inherent reality. They are conditioned. All conditioned phenomena are impermanent. And we also saw that one of the important elements linked to the conditioned experience is our ignorance. So our impermanent experience, the phenomena, impermanent phenomena, all these phenomena are not things that hold themselves. They appear because of conditioned co-production. If something is manifest, it is manifest because of a causal link where all causes and effects are mutually dependent. And this is an important notion to understand. Sometimes when we think about causality, we think about it in a linear ways. We think about the cause and effect being two entities that are separate, distinct. But one is considered as the cause and the other as the effect. And so we presume that there is a distinction between the cause and the effect. Then there are other notions that consider that the cause and the effect are one. So when we talk about conditioned co-production or dependent arising, it is there is a causal relationship between phenomena. So the cause and effect are not two distinct or things or one same thing. The adding up of these two forms, the addition of these two forms, a phenomena appears as through itself and with an external agent, and fourth, that the effect appears without a cause. These are the four possibilities that we consider as creation. We if we grasp something that exists in and of itself, we will refer to one of these four possibilities. So sometimes the term is shenche, that is born from another, a birth of another. The effect and the cause are distinct. You can find this in theistic notions. The creator and its creation are not the same. The creator is eternal, whereas its creation is ephemeral, impermanent, imperfect. Or in our daily lives, we have parents. The parents produce a child. The parents and child are distinct beings. One is the cause and one is the effect. Or there is the seed and the tree. The seed produced the tree, but the seed is not the tree, neither in its form, nor in its properties. It is very different from the tree. So it's something else that gave to some. So this is a very common notion of this. And then you have some philosophical doctrines, or in certain from India, or certain theistic doctrines, where the cause and effect are one. The tree already exists in its seed. The seed and the tree are one of the same. Or in a theistic doctrine, it could be God and its creation is the same thing. God is nothing other than its creation. Its creation is God. The creation is contained in God, its cause. It can be that. I believe that there are certain interpretations that go in this way. So, rangche, we use this term. It is like production through oneself, or auto-production, self-production. It means that the effect is none other than the cause. The cause and the effect are substantively the same. So in the first theory, it is to conceive that cause and effect as two distinct entities. but nonetheless in a relationship of causal dependence. In the second example, it's to consider the same substance that has two distinct appearances. One has the appearance of the cause and one has the appearance of effect, but it is one of the same thing substantively. And third possibility, it is like an addition, a combination of the two first that we saw. It is, for example, the view in the doctrine of the Jain, another religion of in India, the non-violent religion, the Jains. They combine these two views. For example, a potter who makes a jar, the jar has a part that comes from itself. For example, the earth, the clay in which the jar is made is itself, whereas the action of the potter is different from the earth, is a distinct substance, and through his or her action on the clay, brings the clay to transform into a jar. So how something appears comes from itself, itself and from an external agent. So it's like an addition of the two former options. There are two substantive entities that in their common action bring to the production of a phenomena. The last possibility is to say that an effect manifests without there being a cause or a causal field from nothing, like nothingness, an absence that can suffice for something to manifest, to become manifest. So these are all the diverse theories on the creation of the world in religions, in philosophy, in various doctrines. There is to admit that to say that there is one substance, and there is a reification. And in this case, we find we will automatically find one of these four options. I'm giving you elements to reflect upon here. So this point is discussed in more detail. It's not really the purpose of our today, but it's just to better present the notion of the 12 links of dependent origination. We have a presentation here of a causal relation where one element leads to another, but we shouldn't see these connections through the lens of the four possibilities that we saw. That through the other, through itself. So how to understand this? How to understand dependent origination or dependent arising? Elements are mutually dependent in this sequence. It is not only that the effect depends on the cause and that the cause depends on the effect. They are mutually dependent. The cause depends on the effect depends on the cause. They are mutually dependent. that therefore what should be manifest in our observation, there is not one underpinning element that is the foundation, like a substantive, irreducible foundation from which something else arises. For example, generally, when we think about causality, because this exists, that was brought to exist. But if what there is not one that holds in and of itself. It's subtle. In the 12 parts of dependent arising, it's not as if there's one underpinning element that exists substantively and independently and that led to all the others arising. For example, ignorance. Ignorance here is seen as the most subtle element, but all the rest contributes to ignorance, just as ignorance contributes to the others. They are all mutually dependent of one another. That is why we use the term dependent origination or dependent arising. So here we are entering, if we are to speak about a genesis in Buddhism, we would speak about the 12 links of dependent arising or dependent origination. But it's not exactly a genesis, because a genesis implies that something led to something else to exist, to substantively exist. And that something that is manifested through dependent arising in reality has never come into being. The difficulty that we run into in our experience that commonly if I may say, I was going to say a bit dumb, a bit simple. The simple fact of that we perceive something, we deduce that it exists because we perceive it. It's, oh, the world exists. I see it. It's true. I feel it. So because we feel it, we deduce that these things that we perceive or feel exist exactly as they are perceived. So in a way, this is our rather simple relationship, and that often leads us into error. And because of this, in a mistaken way, we attribute substance being in and of itself. We reify what is perceived, but the phenomena that is perceived, if we look closely at the object of experience, it doesn't hold in and of itself. It is a reality that is conditioned, composed, whether it's a visual experience, a cognitive experience, an auditive experience, a thought. All these things are realities or dharmas that are composed. So they have no substantiality, sorry. or they don't exist independently in and of themselves. They are the result of many phenomena that are mutually dependent. And what founds this experience in terms of the object that we imagine is independent, an external object that is independent, if we are to observe this thing as something that is independent, we're not going to be able to find it. If we look at the subject that perceives, who perceives, does that subject have a permanent substantive reality? We cannot find it. Material phenomena are composed by impermanent particles. Even just analyzing what we designate as time, everything that is past no longer exists. Reality is constantly changing. When, as I was saying earlier, we observe gross changes, but these gross changes happen because change is constant at every instant. In tiny, there is this tiny moment. Moment, if it stayed in and of itself, if it didn't move, we would not be facing impermanence. We would be facing eternity. Nothing would ever change if this infinitesimally small instant did not change. So change is happening at every instant. Everything that we said from this morning until this moment doesn't exist anymore. And everything that I'm going to say later hasn't been said yet and doesn't exist yet. So what exists, what I'm saying now, but when you look what I'm saying now, there is a part that is already past, there is a part that hasn't come yet, and so where is the part that is coming and that doesn't change? So you can't grasp this either. So you can't grasp a present moment that exists substantively. In the same way, with phenomena, material phenomena, we cannot find an element that is irreducible, that is a foundational, whether we are talking about the subject or object. We cannot find some irreducible, substantive, permanent element. So we see here that our rather simple conception to say that, oh, this exists, is a kind of a fiction, is a fiction. We are not observing reality. It is a form of, it's a distortion, it is a confusion. So generally, either we are in kind of like a fantasy that there is no, we say that there is a being where there isn't one, or we're in negation. We say, oh, there's nothing. That is not to observe reality. That is conditionally co-produced. So you'll see in text, there's no birth, there's no creation. There has never been any birth or any creation. There'll never be death. Why? What appears to us as created or as death today, it is all illusion. It is grasping. It is clinging. It is not a reality. In reality, it cannot be substantively observed. So So this teaching on dependent arising shows how our confusion is manifest, and above all, how it perpetuates itself. And these 12 links of dependent arising or dependent origination show us how we can undo the sequence. What are the weak links of the sequence that allow us to undo this chain, this sequence, this continuity, and put an end to illusion? So I spoke about these 12 allegories. I will briefly give you the terms. The first is ignorance. The second is karma, or the volitional acts. The samskrita. And then Duce, the samskara. Third, that's the second layer. The third is the consciousness. I briefly, conditioned by ignorance are the volitional acts. Conditioned by the volitional acts is consciousness, or the different consciousnesses. Conditioned by these consciousnesses, the term is name and form. I will give you the traditional terms. Conditioned by name of form are the sources of perception. Conditioned by the sources of perception is contact. Conditioned by contact is the sensations. Conditioned by sensation is thirst. Conditioned by thirst is appropriation. Conditioned by appropriation is becoming. Conditioned by becoming is birth. Conditioned by birth is aging and death. I think I've said the 12. These are the terms. So the first, we addressed it yesterday. The second we saw briefly. Because of ignorance, there are the afflictions. Conditioned by ignorance are the afflictions and the acts, mental, and their expression, the physical and verbal. In their physical and verbal expression, they condition a form of consciousness. The two first belong to our past. They've been like acquired. And consciousness designates, more specifically, the consciousness at the moment of conception. It is like death. You die from your previous life, and you are in the intermediary state, and due to the karmic disposition of your past life, the continuum of your mind is disposed or programmed in a way to express its dispositions. It's like the force of past karmic dispositions leads to take birth somewhere. So the allegory in the first, we saw that it was a blind person who was looking for his path, groping to find his path. The second allegory is a potter who is creating, making jars. It's the idea that it is the idea of creating, producing, of disposing in a certain way. So we can divide the 12 parts of dependent arising or dependent origination in relation to their nature. Some are klesha, some are afflictions, some are karma, action, volitional action, and some are pala, the fruit. So ignorance, the first, is a klesha. It is a state of mind, a confused state of mind, a distortion, a mind that is astray, that doesn't understand reality. And because of that, there's a way of acting. And that leads to the second, samskrita, karma. And this, coming from our past lives, linked to our past life, determines a fruit. So here the fruit is divided into more subtle phases. So we could speak about future births, but birth has different aspects. The first aspect, according to the Buddhist conception, has 3 elements at the moment of conception come together, and they produce a new life and birth. So the first, the 3 elements that come together are like the genes of the mother and father, and the third element is the conscious principle, the continuum of mind in the bardo, in the which is going to identify with an embryo that has been formed. So it is just before this identification of the embryo. That is what we call consciousness here. It is the consciousness in the intermediary state that is led towards a certain type of life. And the allegory that's given here is a monkey who is in a tree searching for a fruit. So it is like the consciousness in its confusion that is led, attracted, or led towards a situation that is linked to its past actions. Some people believe that when we die and before taking rebirth, we look at all these different parents and say, oh, I want to be the child of such and such a person. And maybe if we're highly realized, that's possible. But in most cases, it's a situation or an action that happens in confusion. Like when we're completely drunk, we don't know what we're doing. We don't have the distance or discernment of the situation. Right, it's like right now, maybe we don't even realize we have ignorance. And we just follow our impulses, our inclinations, and we act according to them. And in terms of how we act, is carried by our way of seeing, of understanding, of thinking. So this consciousness in the intermediary state is pushed by its karmic dispositions. For example, let's take someone who has produced negative acts and is to be reborn as a crocodile. And so, and in his illusion, he'll think it's me. He will identify to this embryo inside the egg of a crocodile. If it's a human, it will be attracted to the embryo that is formed in the womb and will identify to it as a me, an I. And that is what is called name and form. Name, what does name mean? Name means in the five aggregates, the psychological elements, and form is the physical part, embryo. So it's the elements of mental and physical existence. It's the formation of the five aggregates and the identification to the five aggregates. It is a form of specific form of life, animal or human, and we identify it as me. And that is when we are an embryo. So the embryo is going to develop, and this phase of development leads to the next phase, conditioned by this identification. It's the sensory perceptions. It's the ayatanas in Sanskrit. Because of a specific embryo, there are the dispositions to perceive in a specific way. So the perception of a man, the perception of a god, the perception of being in the hell realm, or a preta, or of an animal, all the perceptions are not the same. We don't develop the same organs, sensory organs. That's the development. Here we're talking about the development of physical organs and mental dispositions linked to a specific form. That's what the ayatanas are, the sources of perception. So the embryo, the type of embryo conditions the way of seeing the world. So conditioned by that, the next element is named contact. Contact is the union of consciousness, the sensory apparatus or system, and it is the emergence of perception. The contact, it's a reunion. We could say sensations take place. We perceive. A perception takes place. Conditioned by contact or perception is feeling. Vedana in Sanskrit, feeling. And can be pleasant. What is experience, the appearances we perceive, the colors, the sounds, the tastes, what that we see as human or animal or other. We feel. We are subject to this perception, and we can maybe feel that this perception is pleasant, unpleasant. This feeling is pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Perception is always accompanied by a feeling. And on the basis of this feeling, there is a reaction. And conditioned by contact and feeling, conditioned by feeling is thirst or craving. So here, craving or thirst is how we appreciate, or how we define feeling. How do we define something pleasant? We simply say we would like it to never stop. We would like it to continue. And when it stops, well, we are thirsty. We crave. We would like to experience it again. We would like to experience this pleasant sensation again. For example, we can say a crocodile who's just eaten its first prey. He found it, he said he found it delicious. All that this crocodile wants is to have another one, to eat another one. That's craving. I'm kind of making things simple, but... So that's craving or thirst. It's appropriation. It's appropriation. The next one is appropriation, grasping or attachment. Appropriation and craving are both kleshas. So before we saw ignorance, the samskara, or volitional activity, or karma, that is affliction and action. Then we saw consciousness, name and form, six senses, contact and feeling. Those five are phala, fruit, consequence. They are everything that the past acts determined, conditioned. So that gives place to different possibilities, but in our confusion and in our disposition to go astray, to be astray, we are very likely to reproduce again the future consequences, and the reproductions of future consequences happens now. The three next ones are craving, appropriation, and coming to be. Craving and appropriation, or grasping or attachment, or different words, are kleshas, and becoming is karma. So thirst or craving is an expectation, and grasping or attachment or appropriation, there is an attachment to never be separated. On the one hand, it is to be led astray, this desire, and then there is the will to never be separated from it. So these are two aspects. One is more subtle, and one is more explicit, linked to afflictions. And then those are kleshas. And becoming, or coming to be, the term is a little particular. We gave the name of cause, the effect. Here we're talking about an act. It is the acts of thinking. How will I be able to obtain this prey? It's all the strategy that I'm going to put into place, and biting into many. All those are acts. These are all actions. Here I'm talking about the animal world, but we can also bring this to our human life. For example, in human condition, we are always in search. We always have many desires. We always want to have something. We're always attached. And because of our attachment and desire and our afflictions, diverse afflictions, we undertake many actions. to serve these afflictions, to be able to obtain what we want, what we desire, to be able to manifest our hostility, our hatred, our jealousy. We undertake many activities in terms of how we think that we maintain, and how these thoughts are manifest, whether verbally or physically, on a daily basis. These are all acts that are becoming, that are coming to be. It is the activities of a whole life that are called here. It is the karmic activity of a whole lifetime, and it is that determines our future life. So if you want to know what kind of person you have been in your past life, look at what you are now. You are the consequence, you are the fruit. If you want to know what you are becoming in the future, look at what you are doing today. Your conduct today determines your future. What is your experience, future experience will be, your future life. And the two last ones are birth, old age, and death is one. Old age and death is one, are considered one. Birth, it is linked, of course, to our future life, but it is implicit in the 8 previous ones. The 10 previous ones. So birth. So birth determines a future life. If we want to become, if we are going to become animal, human, is determined by present actions. And of course, conditioned by birth is old age and death. This nature, by nature, is ephemeral. And in the aspect of the aspect of dukkha is of deception, of suffering, of all life forms, is characterized, is contained in this old age and death. So ignorance, 1, karma, samskara, 2, 3, consciousness, 4, name and form, sources of perception, contact, feeling, craving or thirst, grasping or attachment or appropriation, coming to be, being born, old age and death. Those are the 12 parts or 12 links of dependent arising or dependent origination. I haven't missed any. Those are the 12. So for the allegories, we saw the monkey. For name and form, it's often a man in a boat, afloat in a boat. So the boat represents the physical body, and the physical and the mental elements is the person inside. That's the allegory. The next allegory, sources of perception, it is a house, a dwelling with 6 openings, and this represents the 6 sources of perception, the 5 senses and the mental, the mind. The contact, it is a couple who are embracing. It is like the consciousness finds its corresponding object, the contact, sensation, effective sensation. So the feeling after that, it's a very It's a man with an arrow in the eye. That's feeling. It is the strength, the power that leads to the feeling, pleasant, unpleasant, or then craving or thirst. It is someone who is being served a drink. And then the next ones, Rinpoche says, I cannot remember. In any case, if you look at the Bhavana Chakra, now you know the different allegories, the Nay and the 12 links. It doesn't come to me right away. So if you have any questions. In craving, link number 8, craving or thirst, you spoke about the ones, what we have an attraction towards. Is repulsion in there? Is the opposite contained in there? Yes, it is the it is the aspect of affliction. Of course, we can consider the opposite. They are included. The opposite would be included here. It is the reaction we have in the face of what is felt. And this reaction leads us to be attached to certain things. That is appropriation. And that appropriation or that attachment will then determine all our conduct, everything that we undertake. So if we are honest with ourselves, our life is dictated by feelings. And we're always in search of what is pleasant, what is pleasurable, what we are going to enjoy. Everything we do is to have more of that. So there's very strong attachment to that, and we don't really see the nature, the deceiving nature of feelings. Even when we practice Dharma sometimes, we imagine Dharma as a way to obtain more pleasurable feelings. Or if we meditate, we're going to focus on, at certain moments, we can be led to focus on the aspect of felicity, which is also a feeling, but it is neutral. But every feeling, every conditioned feeling is in reality by nature it is deceiving. It is we are troubled by pain, by pleasure, but what is neither pleasurable nor painful, and nothingness, the question, nothingness, is it considered a phenomena that is perceived or that can be perceived? And if so, what are the what are the codependent elements of nothingness? Well, it's in a way it is the in a way the question of fullness or emptiness. I mean, it is a notion. We can talk about absence in many different ways. When the thing present is not present, nothingness or the void as nothing, like it is not really observable. The void is not really observable. It is a concept. In the 12 parts of dependent origination, what we have to remember is to see what are the weak links. For example, everything that is fruit or consequence is the aspect that is determined. We can't change it. We can't change what has been determined. We are experiencing the consequences, but what we can act upon are the weak links are those that are klesha and karma. We classified the 12 parts in 3 groups, right? So the group of kleshas and karma, that is the aspect that precedes and determines the causal aspect. So if karma, if we try to avoid negative conduct and adopt positive conduct, will not really change the fact that rebirth perpetuates itself, but we can be the aspect of fruit can be more fortunate, can be better, can be more favorable. The most important is that we eliminate klesha. And here it is ignorance, appropriation, craving. If we manage to eliminate these aspects, then there'll be no more karma. And then if there's no more karma, there's no more fruit, consequence. And so, in this sense, we can liberate ourselves from the cycle of rebirths. So, as we'll see in the Buddha's teaching, in Buddhism teachings, according to one's understanding, expectations, and capacities, the path that we take can be different. You've probably heard about the vehicles of the auditors, the vehicles of the Buddhas of themselves, the Buddhas of the bodhisattvas, and in the vehicle of the bodhisattvas, you have the vehicle of the Vidyadhara, which is associated with Vajrayana. These vehicles are not just the results or the fruit of the history of Buddhism. They're determined by the practitioners themselves, related to their expectation. So the first understanding, the basic understanding, is to understand karmic causality. To say, I want pleasure, I want happiness, but I am cultivating what is going to prevent it and remove it. I am cultivating afflictions, so we have to appease afflictions. But if I can't appease them completely, I can try not to completely follow them and to cultivate actions that are meritorious. And by doing this, I'm going to try and improve my conditions in samsara to have a human life again. This type of motivation is maybe we could call it the religious aspect, or the common basic approach. Sometimes it's called the divine vehicle. It's what we're looking for is better conditions in the samsara. Sorry. It follows our orientation. And then you have another perspective. It's a little long to explain. I see that I'm going to come back to that. We come back in half an hour. So we're going to continue with the explanations given earlier. That is a brief introduction to the different vehicles. So we are studying a text of the Great Vehicle. So we have to understand the specificities of the Great Vehicle and what distinguishes this Great Vehicle. As I was saying this morning, you probably noted that there are different types of lineages, Buddhist traditions. Today we have a tendency to speak about them in terms of cultural areas, Chinese, Japanese, Southeast Asia, Korean, or Theravada Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism, Vajrayana Buddhism. And we could deduce from here, knowing a little bit, knowing this history of religions in the West, that these different denominations are the result of schisms or conflicts or within the history of Buddhism, as was the case with Christianity here in the West. But it's not at all the case. These different denominations certainly have a history and are a result of a history and transmission of Buddhism. But fundamentally, the distinction is not so much a circumstantial, historical distinction, but it's at the level of the practitioner. It's related to the motivation and to the expectation and attitude of the practitioner. So in this sense, as I was saying, there is a first vehicle. We can I use the term divine vehicle, devayana, if you like, in Sanskrit. And it is to adopt Buddhist ethical conduct, ethical discipline. And this in order to have a fortunate, prosperous life, in this life. It is a rather superficial through this motivation, we don't even have the hope of going beyond confusion. We don't envisage to go beyond confusion. We just want to be better and to be in happy and fortunate conditions. We have not seen the deceptive nature. The characteristic of suffering that is inherent in conditioned pleasure, which is by nature ephemeral. We don't realize that. And when we are attached to it, we practice ethical discipline. So many people who practice all religions, often it's kind of this perspective. We pray to have, I don't know, a promotion, or to earn more, or to meet the right companion, right partner, not to have an accident, all that approach belongs to this. It doesn't mean to say that if you do that, you're not Buddhist, not at all. You can be in that perspective and adopt ethical discipline in the Buddhist practice, and adopting Buddhist ethical discipline, ethical conduct can help you go towards more conditioned well-being. So, for example, if you follow the 5 precepts and you make the wish to never kill, to never steal, to never engage in sexual misconduct, that is all acts of violence, infidelity, and if you avoid lying and taking intoxicants, drugs, just to adopt that conduct in one's life, you preserve you from many, many problems. Our impulses generated by our afflictions make us feel like killing, lying, many negative things. But if we follow them, everything that we obtain is more suffering, more suffering. So if you choose violence, as I was saying yesterday, our life expectancy shrinks dramatically, exponentially. And in the same way, if you engage in negative actions, the fact of following ethical conduct, it's not to please the Buddha because we're afraid he'll punish us, or it's something we do because we understand the consequences. And to take these vows, to follow these ethical disciplined conduct, this ethical conduct is to protect oneself. So the term used in the Buddhist vocabulary to designate ethical discipline is shila. The etymology is very particular, very specific. It is to obtain like a protection, the shade, like the freshness of the shade. So what does that mean? We can ask ourselves. It is the image, a metaphor, like imagine that you're in the desert, it's sweltering heat, and suddenly you find an oasis. It doesn't prevent you from being in the desert, but it is more pleasant. You have to understand it in this way. So what characterizes our situation? We are in a situation that is very fragile. Life is fragile. We could die at any instant. We don't understand what our reality is. We have all these fictions that we maintain all the time. We're in a very fragile situation. We want to protect ourselves, to preserve ourselves, but we don't even know how to go about it, and we undertake all types of action, and we only to do this, and all we do is to harm ourselves. And if we understand the causal reality between our thoughts, our actions, our becoming, then it is a huge gift from the Buddha to show us this. And if we adopt this, even if samsara doesn't stop for us, it is like the samsara is a bit like the desert. We're tormented by heat and thirst and difficulties. But in this adversity, we find a certain shade, a certain freshness, a certain well-being. So that's the value of ethical discipline. So we can follow this ethical discipline and thereby assure oneself a well-being within the samsara. But if we look a little more deeply at the Buddha's teaching, we will understand dukkha. That is, even a fortunate, a happy condition within samsara remains deceiving, deceptive. All pleasures are ephemeral and never present themselves without their counterpart. There is no pleasure without counterpart of difficulty. It's nice to have a house, but you have to take care of it, insure it. It's nice to have friends, but you have to also, we get along well, make efforts to not get into arguments and everything has a counterpart. All pleasures have a difficult counterpart. And on the other hand, even if this pleasant situation is present, it's ephemeral. So there's no salvation, fulfillment, nothing that we can really veritably obtain. It's disappointment, it's deception. And when we understand that, we orient ourselves to go beyond conditioned existence. And it is that aspiration that we call Ningjung. It is the certain emergence of the path to enlightenment that is sometimes translated as renunciation. It's not a great translation, but it means that there is no hope of obtaining anything in conditioned existence. We don't go that way. We turn inside, turn within, to be free forever from births, whatever kind of birth we can obtain. It is not effective, really, when you get down to it. It's deceptive. It's even the most fortunate, happy condition. So that is what should motivate us and be the foundation of our engagement in practice. But it's not something that necessarily comes at the outset. That's not a problem. Maybe it will progressively come as we understand the teaching, as we reflect. We will ripen and progressively come to this understanding, and then effectively we will engage ourselves in the practice in the correct way. So that perspective underpins all the Dharma. It is the vehicle of the hearers and the vehicle of the Pratyeka Buddhas, those who independently achieve a liberation. The Theravada tradition is to liberate oneself from samsara, and the beyond samsara is named nirvana, the cessation of suffering, the beyond suffering, beyond conditioned existence. And this beyond conditioned existence is acquired when there's no more karma being produced. And there's no more karma being produced when the afflictions are dissipated. And the afflictions are the result of attachment to the I. And when the grasping or the clinging of the I ceases, when this confusion, this ignorance is dissipated, the desire is dissipated. If the desire is no longer there, there's no more karma and there's no more rebirth. So, in this way, we can we can go beyond suffering. In the teaching of the Great Vehicle, this result that, or finality that we search for ourselves is not the ultimate aim. Here again, we have a perspective that is distinct. In the Great Vehicle, all the points that were taught regarding suffering that we have seen these all hold. They're all there. The difference is that we don't think that this just concerns me. It concerns all sentient beings. And what distinguishes the perspective of the Great Vehicle is that to accomplish something just for myself, when I know that others are going to continue suffering and be in confusion, is unsatisfactory. It's somehow we cannot accept it. And so here, what predominates in the motivation is to be concerned by all other sentient beings and to follow a practice of path and to develop discernment. If above all, it can be useful to everyone, not just for me at the expense of everyone, but it is a perspective that where we search, or we wish to help all sentient beings. There is a lot of misunderstanding on this subject. Some imagine that in the vehicle of the hearers and the Pratyeka Buddhas, they are not compassionate, they are selfish. It's not at all the case. Of course, there is understanding that others have suffering. There is, of course, compassion and loving kindness, universal loving kindness to a very high degree. But what distinguishes it from the Great Vehicle is a matter of courage. There is an image that was given by the Buddha to distinguish these two perspectives. Imagine two parents who have a child, and this child, when playing, falls into a sewer that's horrible, and the two parents rush over, and the two parents are extremely upset to see their kid who is to see their child like this, and maybe only one will have the courage to jump into this really disgusting sewer to save it. Does it say that one parent is better than the other? No, not at all. It's just that one had more courage. So here, I mean, the teaching on loving kindness and compassion is common to all Buddhist vehicles. What distinguishes them is the courage. It is to confront the difficulties, to help other sentient beings. That's the principle. So we say the vehicle of the bodhisattvas. Bodhisattva, sattva one of the etymological meanings of this term is courage. The one who orients himself towards enlightenment and has the courage indicates this implication, this engagement to, above all, try not to just help oneself, but all sentient beings. It might seem crazy because the number of beings is infinite. Their confusion is infinite. How is it possible? Pragmatically speaking, being able to help all sentient beings. It is like a project that can seem like madness. I mean, and even if it is, I mean, I don't know how I would have this courage. So it's a matter of lack of courage. What characterizes the bodhisattva is the immense courage to dedicate him or herself to the well-being of beings. So the bodhisattvas don't look for nirvana. Nirvana is ultimate well-being. The bodhisattva wants a result that will affect and be beneficial to all sentient beings. And here we speak of perfect enlightenment or non-localized enlightenment that is not limited to the nirvana and that is at the expense of samsara. It includes nirvana and samsara. That is, that by accomplishing one's ultimate benefit, at the same time we accomplish the benefit of other sentient beings. And we can affect and be beneficial for other sentient beings. That is the distinction. I will come back to this afternoon. And above all, in terms of the practice of the Great Vehicle. And if you have some questions, we'll take a little more time for questions. I have a question about what you said this morning, that there is no self that is permanent, and that it goes from one existence from another. So, what is karma attached to? What does karma hold on to that goes from one life to another? Rinpoche responds, it is the continuum of mind. For example, if you look at the river La Vézère, it's the same thing. We'll say the Vézère River exists, but if you look a little more closely, Vézère is running, is flowing. It's flowing. It's never the same. Sometimes it's high, sometimes it's flowing slowly, quickly. There's not one moment where it just stays. So is the Vézère, in terms of a static, permanent entity, can be observed? No. It is a designation. And when I say, oh, that's the Vézère River, I don't really identify the river correctly. I am grasping a convention, a sound. I associate a sound to certain perceptions, and I assume that this thing is an entity that is a full-fledged entity that remains fixed, static. But in reality, it's something that is flowing. And in the same way, today I perceive, because I perceive, I think that there is an I. It's like an evidence, that's how I conclude. That's how we generally conclude. Well, okay, I perceive. There has to be something that perceives. and something else that is distinct, that is perceived. And this, what perceives, we can think that it is the I, and we grasp onto it like the I, that is permanent. But if we observe what is who perceives, we don't. It is not obtained out separately from the process of perception. We cannot distinguish subject and object that are distinct, permanent, and that are irreducible and permanent. And in this sense, we cannot observe an I, and it doesn't mean to say that we're nothing. There is a process of perception. There is a continuum of mind, we could say, that stays. It is the continuum of mind that accumulates karma, that takes rebirth, and this continuing of mind shouldn't be confused with the I, because there is nothing permanent, substantive in the I. This morning, the question on the 12 allegories, the 11th and the 12th, the birth, aging, and death, is what group is this linked to? Is it karma or fruit? The 11th and 12th, that is fruit, says Rinpoche. From the consciousness to feeling, consciousness, name and form, sources of perception, contact, feeling, these are all fruit. They all imply, it is, in summary, this is birth, old age, and death. They can be divided into 3 lives. The first 2 past lives, the next 8 ones present life, and the 2 last ones future life. So birth implies the first 5 that are craving appropriation and coming to be. We can see it as a sequence of 3 lives. We can see it in 1 life. They are all present, and each of these elements, as I said at the beginning, are codependent. It's not as if one of these elements could exist without the others. If there's one, there will be necessarily the others. A question. I read somewhere that these 12 links, beyond the classification in terms of 1 life or 3 lives, they could be seen as in a moment, from an act of thought and everything that follows. Is that true? Is that right? Is that correct? Or could you, and if so, could you help us could you illustrate this so that we can understand how it happens? Well, Rinpoche says this could be in life, of course, at each moment there is ignorance that is present, there is past dispositions that are present, Samskrita. And today there is, there is consciousness, our perception, all everything, the whole apparatus of perception, the consciousness, identification, the sources of perception, that are producing. This is always there. And then the feeling that we see at each instant. And of course, there come the afflictions. And we can see with acts that are becoming the consequences that emerge, birth, old age, and death can be seen as future lives, but very powerful acts. We can see that we can see things become. We can see what can become manifest in this life, the birth that can be manifest in this life. It can be seen this way, but the more global presentation is to see it in, as we saw earlier. My question might not be very clear. What results from thought? Can it be really authentic? In a sense, it's hard for me to explain. When I see everything that's not authentic, I see how can I trust what comes up in me? I have these thoughts. Maybe I want to save this. I want to do good. How do I know if it's authentic? How can I trust it? Rinpoche answers. We saw the nature of thoughts. They are mental representations, concepts. They are conventions. Where we go astray is to take this as real. It doesn't mean to say that we can't use them. And so practice isn't just non-conceptual. There's a whole part of practice that is conceptual. And the fact of maintaining certain concepts, to answer your question, there are certain kinds of concepts and thoughts that are useful, positive, and others that are negative. Those thoughts that lead to loving kindness, compassion, generosity, these are thoughts to be cultivated. All thoughts that generate hatred and aversion are negative. So I think, oh, he's mean, he's nasty, he did this to me. He's really not a good person. All these insults come to my mind, and I believe I kind of uphold this. These thoughts are the fuel of hatred. My hatred, my violence are built on this. But if the nature is the same, I can think, he did this, but he was confused. Maybe I was partly responsible. Like I generated this sentiment in this person. Maybe I could have acted differently. I'm sorry. How could I appease his anger or her anger? If I have this thought, this will fuel some loving kindness, some generosity, and will appease my afflictions. So thoughts that are negative are reinforce afflictions, but positive thoughts appease, reduce afflictions. So there's a whole part of daily practice. It's about discerning these thoughts, cultivating thoughts that will generate loving kindness, generosity, all these concepts remain. They are thoughts. It's not a non-conceptual practice, but they lead the mind to be more peaceful and to lead the mind to feel serenity, non-conceptual serenity, and to take some distance, to have more freedom with regards to vis-a-vis one's confusion and attachments. The question, so a bodhisattva, if I've understood, won't think, oh, I need to help, it will act, I will be spontaneous. So here Rinpoche answers, we have to distinguish the level of the bodhisattva. We shouldn't try to reach the last step right away. It's progressive. We are aspiring bodhisattvas, beginners. We have to motivate ourselves. We have to have a reasoning why, and feel in one's experience, why is it beneficial for me? An aspiring bodhisattva has to see that the practice of the bodhisattva is not a path of abnegation. It is to finding in altruism one's own salvation. It is through the generosity that inspire me and other sentient beings that inspire me to act in the interest of others and to be an aspiring bodhisattva. So at the beginning it's conceptual, but at the level of a perfectly enlightened Buddha who has perfected all qualities, above all wisdom, the Buddha doesn't need to premeditate. Buddhas manifest spontaneously for the benefit of all sentient beings. In the mind, it is said in the Sutra of the contemplation at the moment of death, it is said that we should not search. We shouldn't search for Buddhahood elsewhere, anywhere else. If we are an enlightened being, an enlightened being sees ignorance. Do we have to be enlightened to see ignorance? Yeah, I understand. Yeah, the issue. I've been trying. It's what I was trying to present yesterday, to introduce yesterday. Ignorance is something that can be discerned at the outset, even though we're in ignorance. We don't have to be enlightened to identify ignorance. Otherwise, it would be a lost cause. Because if we're ignorant, and so long as we're ignorant, if we can't see the ignorance, then we'll never be able to end ignorance. So how to end ignorance? If we can't end ignorance, we cannot be enlightened. So that would kind of exclude enlightenment. But the nature of ignorance, and that's what has to be discerned here, it has a term that really has no equivalent in French, or I guess in English. It has the adventitious, some translators say, momentary, other translations. What we designate as ignorance is being a fiction. It's not truly established. It's established in our way of seeing things. So in the face of a mirage, where you perceive something that appears to be water and we think, oh, that is water. Or in darkness, we see a rope and we think, oh, that's a snake, and we become afraid. Or where are we going astray in these situations? It does not lie in this phenomena in the snake or the phenomena of the mirage. It is to identify in an erroneous way. There is a snake, but there isn't one. There is water, but there is none. That is illusion. So to come back to the reality of our mind, it is to identify in an erroneous way the I. But the reality, as in the image, in the metaphor of the mirage, is the atmosphere, certain reflections of the light that produces something that looks like water, or the darkness and the rope that looks like a snake. And there's never been any water, there's never been any snake, there's never been an I. That's where the mistaken understanding lies. It is to grasp in a mistaken way, in an erroneous way. So when you are shown that, oh, this is not water, this is not a snake, and you observe well, then our illusion is dissipated. We're no longer going to grasp in an erroneous way. And why is it possible? Because this way of clinging was kind of was on the moment, adventitious. It's not founded on anything. It's just an erroneous way of seeing things, and that's the nature of all afflictions. That's why we can free ourselves from them. If ignorance and afflictions had any kind of substantiality, had a nature, a real nature, a reality, we would not be able to part from them. So with regards to the reality of our mind, has never been characterized by the I. So we don't know ourselves when we grasp an I. We are being mistaken. So recognizing emptiness or the nature of mind is to understand its true nature that is free from the I. And this is something that happens in experience. That we must observe this. It is not conceptual. One has to experience it, to live it. And by becoming familiar with this, progressively, ignorance will completely be dissipated. But at the outset, one has to observe reality and become familiar with it. All the practices to become familiar with reality, to put it simply. So, to answer your question, it is possible, even if we are in ignorance, to discern ignorance, and on the other hand, to discern what is free from ignorance, and even have the experience of what is free from ignorance, even if all the force and the power of ignorance cannot be eliminated immediately, but it can happen progressively through practice. And by becoming more and more familiar, we obtain the fruit. So, for example, in the commentary of the Bodhicharyavatara, this image is given. Imagine, it is said, imagine someone who has a field and said, oh, one day this field will give me a wonderful harvest. And he just, or he or she just stands there without doing anything. The field will never give anything. If he wishes to have a good harvest, the field will have to be cultivated. We'll have to sow seeds and take care of it. It's the same with wisdom. I will just have a faith, have confidence in the Dharma, and one day enlightenment will manifest itself. One day I will have wisdom. That is the same thing as just standing in front of your field and waiting for a harvest without doing anything. So in one's experience, what does wisdom mean? How in my experience can I discern it? And what I have discerned, is that wisdom or is it not wisdom? And how can I cultivate that? in contemplative practice, in my daily life, etc. And it is by familiarizing oneself, by cultivating what is free from all confusion, that gradually the fruit of enlightenment will be actualized. The fruit of enlightenment is not something that we produce. And it's another important point in terms of Buddhist practice. Enlightenment is not something that we construct. It is not conditioned. It is not something that we create. Enlightenment is the original reality of our mind. We do away with the illusion that separates us from our true nature, the true nature of mind, that prevents us from seeing that. So once you've dissipated all the adventitious fictions, then reality becomes manifest. Enlightenment, in that sense, is your reality. It has never left you. It will always be present, but you have to recognize it and familiarize yourself with it and actualize it. And if you don't do that, then you will continue going from one deception, one disappointment to another. Thank you very much. And see you later, 3 o'clock. We meet at 3. Saramdi tamche sipani domnye nyepe tranam pachene. Kanachi balachupai sipe sole ror war sho.